Hey everyone, this is Armando with the Lake Erie School of Woodworking. Today we're going to show you a couple things you can use for your layout. Okay, so the first thing you want to make sure you have when you're doing layout is a sharp pencil. It's always the best thing to have. A sharp pencil will leave you a nice sharp line. Believe it or not, as the pencil wears down and that lead gets thicker, it could lead to some errors in your layout. So always have a nice sharp pencil. First, most simplest one you're probably going to find, most of you probably have, is a speed square. Speed square is great if you're just laying out rough work. We don't necessarily always use it for very fine, precise layout. These aren't known to be the most precise tools in the shop, but they're great if you're just doing some quick layout. It allows you to do some simple lines and some simple layout. So the best part of a speed square is it has this little edge right here, this little lip, and that lip allows it to lock onto the edge of your board. Set it to wherever you need to set it, and then you can strike your 90-degree line. Speed square also has several different functions, mainly for doing usually construction type framing. This is a framing square or layout square, whatever they want to call it, but it can pivot, it can set different angles. Most of the time when you're in the shop, you're just dealing with 90s and 45s, so this allows you to lay out those two lines pretty easy, pretty accurately. Good enough for just breaking down wood to rough dimension. You can, if you learn how to use all the little markings and measurings on there, lay out different angles, but for the most part we just use it for a quick layout. Now if we were going to do any more precise work, you want to get yourself a nice combination square. This one happens to be a 12-inch Starrett combination square. These will last you a lifetime if you take care of them. This is what we use for doing more precise work in the shop. Most combination squares will have different layouts and markings on them, usually 1/8 inch, 16 inch, 30 seconds, and 64ths. Now, a lot of times we don't use those tiny increments, but they're there if you need them. So, layout square, again, the combination square, we use it the same way as a speed square because you can lay it up right against the edge of the wood, make your line, but when you have a nice precise tool like this, you're going to lay out a more precise lines and dimensions. The other way I like to use it is if I need to set myself a specific dimension. So for example, I can go to, let's say, 2 inches. And if I need if I need to lay out something 2 inches from an edge, I can set it to 2 inches, and then I can bring my line down, and then now I know I've made myself a nice precise line, that specific dimension from the edge. The other tool in the shop that we use a lot is called a bevel gauge. This is used for when we need to set specific angles. So if I want to set myself a whatever angle it happens to be, 30 degrees, 10 degrees, or whatever it is, I can set this to that angle, lock it down, put it up against the edge of my wood, and make my line. And then using this, I can also use it to set up various tools in the shop. So I can use it to set my table saw blade to a certain angle, maybe a joiner fence to a certain angle. It's a pretty handy overall layout tool to have in the shop. This blade will slide up and down here if you need to change the angle. You loosen the knob and then you can adjust it. One other thing on layout, you want to make sure that you have yourself a good measuring tape. There's a lot of different brands out there, and I'm not endorsing one brand or the other. What I would like to say is a lot of times you'll find those big sort of contractor, carpenter measuring tapes. They're usually 25 or 30 feet long. There's no reason really that you would need a tape measure that long in the shop. I like to have these smaller ones. This is a 12-foot. More often than not, you're not really dealing with wood bigger than 12 or maybe even 16 feet. So a nice small compact tape measure is a lot better for the common woodworking situation. It's a lot easier to leave in your apron. And it takes up a lot less room. It's lighter, and you don't need that big, crazy, framing measuring tape. The other thing is always remember, if you do buy a measuring tape, try to buy the same brand It keeps it consistent when you're doing work. And as you're working on a project, try to always use the same measuring tape while you're working on that project. So if I happen to use this measuring tape to lay out this board and create this project, I'll try to keep this measuring tape with me, because every tape has a slight variation, and you don't want to get confused, so you don't want to switch from, let's say, this measuring tape to a different brand 3 different times as you're working through the project, because you could lead to some errors. So I usually try to at least have the same brand, the same type of measuring tape in the shop, so even if I do happen to grab the right one, I have a better chance of them being hopefully the same, but I do always try to keep the same measuring tape with me throughout the project so that I don't run into any errors. So it's a good tip for you.